Welcome back. The death of excommunicated atheist dictator Fidel Castro still grieved by Pope Francis. In a message to Raul Castro, the Pope wrote, quote, "I express my sentiments of sorrow to your excellency and other family members of the deceased dignitary, as well as to the people of this beloved nation."
So what does this say about exiled Cuban Americans here as they celebrate in the streets of Miami?
Here to weigh in is Fox News religion contributor Father Jonathan Morris.
Good morning.
Father, always good to see you.
Yeah.
Good morning.
You know, they say that there are two things we know for sure are always going to happen, death and taxes. Well, here's another one. Popes, the Vatican, are never going to rejoice publicly when somebody dies.
Sure.
In fact, they're going to mourn and grieve for their soul. And especially there should be grieving for the soul of an unrepented, publicly unrepented dictator. Okay, now I don't know what his personal life was like, but the Vatican's never going to be saying, yippee, someone has died. At the same time, it's not only understandable, but I think a very healthy and normal thing for people to be celebrating in the streets, hopefully the beginning of an end of a terrible, terrible era for the Cuban people.
Well, there are a lot of Catholics and people of all kinds of faith, obviously, in Florida, particularly in Miami, Cuban exiles, as we mentioned, who have been dancing in the streets, and they feel they still have relatives back there in Cuba who've been oppressed. They're on food lines, literally having their food rationed, while this dictator had multiple luxury vacation properties and all kinds of money and riches. So how do they reconcile all
It's true, and for many, many years, the Vatican, we go back to John Paul II, Pope Benedict, Pope Francis, have spoken out very strongly against human rights abuses in Cuba. At the same time, they have taken this side, the diplomatic angle, and they've worked, we know, very publicly recently with the Obama administration in order to regularize relationships between the United States and Cuba. So that's probably another element. Listen, we're not going to publicly go and rail against Fidel Castro as he's dying. So maybe that's, whether that works or not, that's a prudential decision.
60 years of atheist authoritarian regime in Cuba. What is the state of the church there?
It's alive, but it certainly has been hampered by a tremendous amount of control by a communist atheist state. And the faith of the Cuban people, while very strong among some, there's been generations and generations of state-controlled life, including religion.
It's such a powerful example of, just freedom of religion. So
right, being able to worship, which you don't see in China, North Korea. They don't like that.
Cuba.
Father Jonathan, thanks for being here.
Thank you. My pleasure.